What movie could you turn around and say the good guy was really the bad guy? Peter Pan, as it is clearly said that Peter cut off Hook's hand for no reason. And the Lost Boys, Wendy and her brothers, they are just little kids who were taken from their rooms in the middle of the night to go live with some strange little boy in the middle of nowhere. I actually just played Peter Pan and read Peter in Kensington Gardens as well as Peter and Wendy to help prepare. The Lost Boys are children who fall out of their pram, and if they are not claimed in a week they are taken to Neverland. In other words, they are kids who were thrown out. The play has a lot to do with abandonment and a child's perception of adulthood. Peter was lost by his mother, but raised by fairies in Kensington Gardens, London. He wanted to visit her, and after the fairies taught him how to fly he went to see her, but she had another baby. To Peter, this meant she forgot him, but he didn't see that she stayed awake with the window open every night for him to come to. He just waited too long and his mother moved on. This doesn't mean she forgot him. Moving on is something adults have to do, but he, like a selfish child, assumes it's all to do with him. He thinks she knew he was coming to visit and barred the window to tell him she forgot about him. The Lost Boys also accompany Wendy, John and Michael and eventually grow up. Peter forgets them. Peter also forgets Hook and Tinkerbell. Wendy visits, and the play ends with Wendy as an older woman who no longer looks up to Peter and finds him very sad. As for the kidnapping, Peter doesn't know any girls. He assumes all women are mothers because that is all he knows of them, and girls are much too clever to fall out of their prams, so there are no girls in Neverland. Peter is a very naive and selfish little boy who can't seem to fill an empty void in his heart. He finds Wendy and wants her to be his mother, hoping that will fill the void. But his refusal to grow up causes him to forget everyone he loves and leaves him in a cycle of happy bursts, such as killing Hook, but perpetual misery. The saddest part is that he can never learn from his past experiences in this state. He's addicted to it and can't escape. He will never know its harm. Tom and Jerry. Tom is just a poor house cat trying to fight off the food stealing, property destroying and teasing little vermin that is Jerry. Jerry is a freaking dong. I love Rent, but seriously, it's about a bunch of teenagers who refuse to pay their rent because their friend landlord Benny told them a while ago that they could live there rent free, and now is asking them to start paying. Then they frick with Benny's business dealings and kill his dog, and then he pays for Mimi to go to rehab. He's definitely the good guy in the movie if anyone is. Benny buys a building, lets his friends live in it for free, comes up with a booziness plan that would allow them to build a studio that would let them work on their craft. They would still be living rent free by building condos over the studio and using the rent from the condos to help keep the studio open. The only thing I can see wrong with him is that he's a sucker who keeps allowing the people around him to take advantage of his generosity. Mark is a failed screenwriter who villainizes the people he should be grateful for. He ignores his own parents on Christmas because they irritate him, despite them obviously caring a lot for him and missing him, and then launches an attack on the one person who's trying to help him succeed by supporting him. Roger is a former H-addict who fancies himself a tortured artist, but all he does is sit on his butt in his apartment feeling sorry for himself. Mimi is a 19-year-old H-addicted stripper who pushes drugs on others and has a YOLO philosophy on life. Tom Collins is a bright, intelligent man who could have had a great future ahead of him if he hadn't vandalized expensive electrical equipment at MIT and gotten himself fired. So his solution is to mooch off an old acquaintance and drink Stolly while rewiring ATM machines. Maureen is a narcissistic, untalented performing arts artist with no morals or a sense of loyalty. She's unfaithful, manipulative and only cares about herself. Angel is a street drummer who appears sweet and kind to all those around her, and yet has no qualms about killing an Akita he had no beef with, or breaking and entering. Joanne falls into the category of sucker. She's an uptight Ivy League graduate who finds herself in over her head when she meets someone who tries to teach her to let her hair down. The music in Rent is brilliant. The storyline is awful. Serendipity. Both the lead male and female were narcissist buttholes of crap all over their devoted significant others. But Destiny. Animal House is a movie about a college dean simply trying to retain order and safety amongst the Greek system and the fraternity responding by having sex with the dean's wife and mayor's underage daughter. A fraternity member poses as the boyfriend of a deceased sorority member to get a date, and the fraternity eventually destroys the town parade. Fred from Scooby-Doo. There are a variety of reasons why he is always the biggest villain in the series movies, but probably the most pertinent is his exploitation of Shaggy and Scooby. Shaggy and Scooby are petrified of ghosts, but are always the pair that take the most risks being human bait in one of Fred's, Velma's, master plans. Why? Scooby snacks. Fred realizes the two are addicted to Scooby snacks. Heck, Fred himself probably spikes them with C or something, so he abuses his monopoly over them to exploit Shaggy and Scooby's addiction. So addicted are the pair that they forego all their fears of ghosts just to get a hit. So when Fred says, "Hey guys, why don't you volunteer?" he already knows the answer will be a zombified yes if he promises Scooby Snacks drugs the two on Scooby Snacks beforehand. It's similar to promising H to an addict provided they do something they're usually scared of. Does the addict really have a choice? Number TLDR. Fred got Scooby and Shaggy addicted to drugs so they'd be more prone to taking risks. The Wizard of Oz. I'm not suggesting Dorothy was evil, but she killed a woman and just accepted that what she'd done was okay because a bunch of little people she'd never met told her the woman was wicked. Seriously, if someone dropped a house on my sister and then proceeded to strip her dead body of clothing, put the clothing on, and then prance off down the road while singing, I'd send winged monkeys after her too. Not really completely on topic, but one that has really peed me off since I've seen it. Happy Feet. The moral of the story is, if nature wants to save itself from mankind, it needs to learn how to entertain us better. Seriously, nature isn't entertaining enough for mankind to care, is what Happy Feet's writers seem to say. Happy Feet is about a gay guy coming out to his parents. Seriously, I worked at a hosting that played it on repeat. It's about coming out as gay. The Little Mermaid. Seriously, it's a spoiled 16-year-old mermaid who throws a huge fit and becomes obsessed with a complete stranger. Then she makes a deal with the CB so that she can have legs and run off to marry the complete stranger. Okay, maybe this doesn't necessarily make her a bad person, but what the frick kind of lifestyle is Disney trying to portray as a good way to live? Diet. Thanks to everyone who responded. I've never gotten this much attention from a single comment, and I now have a new most upvoted comment. Special thanks to those who informed me of the original story, and those who laughed as they read CB. Do literally anything for the D. The dentist on Finding Nemo. They make him out to be some sort of kidnapper, but he was just trying to find a nice present for his special needs niece. But he knew she kills fish by shaking up the bags, and he did it anyway. Pirates of the Caribbean. Jack was a pirate, but they made the English the bad guys for persecuting him. I know that's the point of the story, but it still bothered me as a child. Let's not beat around the bush. In Toy Story 1, Woody is a massive selfish prick who is jealous of Buzz and tries to kill him. He doesn't try to kill him. His intention was to knock him behind the desk so he would be taken to Pizza Planet instead. The plan went awry when Buzz dodged. The EPA guy in Ghostbusters was doing a legitimate job. He may have been a dong about it, but you would need someone with confidence and attitude to do that job so they can get direct answers. Who would be comfortable knowing that down the block there was an unregulated storage depot of unknown or recently discovered substances? The Ghostbusters also withheld information on how their storage thingy worked, causing the EPA guy just to turn it off with little more than a "don't do that." It had no safety devices, no fail safes, just an on-off handle. Then they had the audacity to cheer and big note themselves for cleaning up their own mess. What a bunch of assholes. I watched the director's commentary of Ghostbusters and Ivan Reitman said that the guy who played Peck got a really bum deal from making that film. For years after the film came out, people would shout "Dickless" at him in the street, or come running up and say, "Oh, it's you, the guy with no dong." Also for the final scene where he gets a load of marshmallow dumped on him after the Stay Puft guy gets killed, the effects department used lime shaving foam, which the actor was allergic to. TLDR. The actor got a huge allergic reaction from filming and was called "Dickless" by strangers for years. Long-time lurker. Here, created an account just to respond to this thread. The all-time douchebag good guy in a movie was Santa Claus in the classic stop-motion Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. What a narcissistic, self-serving, porcine sob. He has zero empathy for anyone else's problems and has the gall to tell Rudolph's dad that his son had better outgrow the red nose if he wants to be on the sleigh team someday. It's pretty ironic that a human manatee in a red suit is ostracizing someone else based on their appearance. Note, I'm a fat bastard, so I feel I've got a bit of slack when it comes to the fat jokes. Rudolph's dad is no hero either. Freaking suck up. His reindeer lips are locked firmly around old Chris Cringe's candy cane. He's totally on board and shaming his son for daring to look different. And let's not forget how he treated the elves after they spent so much time and energy groveling before him, celebrating his bowl full of jelly butt by singing his praises. It was very clear that Santa gave exactly zero fricks about the elves and their hosannas. I guess every slave owner has the same opinion. It's too bad they made the man in red look like such a squirming bag of dongs. Really casts a pall on my Christmas memories, considering how much I cherished that show when I grew up. Didn't really figure out how messed up the show was until hadn't seen it in years, and watched it as an adult. TLDR. Santa is a jiggling bag of crap who treats Rudolph and the elves like they were toenail dirt. I just made this argument about Santa in that movie 3 weeks ago and everyone thought I was a nutbag. Thank you, kind internet stranger, for making me feel less crazy. PS. I also rather enjoy your username. That is all. Predator. Schwarzenegger and his men killed way more people than the Predator did. When you think about it, the movie makes a commentary that mankind is the most vicious predator of all. Yep, that's why Predator came to Earth. The search for the most dangerous game to hunt. The most dangerous game is good source material for that. Gotta give Predator props though. Think about hunting velociraptors, armed with machine guns, with nothing but Harry Potter's invisibility cloak, a desert eagle, and a knife. The Wedding Bride. That karate guy totally took Jed Mosley's wife to be on his wedding day. That is a jerk move if you ask me. Billy Madison. Drunk, stupid, and privileged Adam Sandler suddenly decides that he wants to take the job that is instead going to be given to someone who has worked hard their entire life to get it. His dad manipulates the system to put on an absurd kabuki play of an education for him. Hot, disciplined teacher turns into a turbo S for him after he clumsily gropes her, most likely because of his money. When he loses the bet, he changes the rules to a sudden death round where he cheats to win, then decides he doesn't want the job anyway. He's not mean to be liked at the beginning. He's quite obviously a huge douche who whines about not getting his way, but the character realizes what's important and that's what makes him the good guy. Also, he lost the bet because he was framed, and one could argue that he never really wanted the job. He just didn't want the other douche to have it cause he knew he'd screw everything over. Tom and Jerry. 9 times out of 10 Tom is just chilling out until little sucker Jerry shows up and slams his tail in the door or dong blocks him when he's trying to get some pee. Then when crap gets too much for him he runs and hides behind the giant dog. Frick Jerry, he's a little bee. Starship Troopers. It's all government propaganda to make themselves seem superior. The bugs didn't launch a meteor, they just became a scapegoat for the meteor strike on Buenos Aires. Beauty and the Beast. A man tries to save his love from a crazy beast who almost killed her father and practically enslaved her. This would work if Gaston wasn't such an insufferable prick. Into the Wild. The protagonist is a narcissist who follows his personal urges for short-term pleasures, without a disregard for the people who care for him. For example, the scene where he gives his last quarter to the other guy whose quarter was up, instead of calling the people who are actually waiting for a call from him. I had to read that book for an English class a while ago, and I could argue that Chris was actually a sociopath. I looked up lists of common sociopathic characteristics, and he fit basically all of them. He never gets very emotionally attached to people himself, although he's very superficially charming. He tends to use other people when he needs them and throw them away when he doesn't. And he also has a lack of realistic long-term goals, another common sociopathic trait. Finally, he exhibits very impulsive behavior, which is again a sociopathic trait. There were a lot more, but those are just the primary ones I remember. Spider-Man 2. Mary Jane. She leaves the nicest and coolest guy on the planet at the altar because some guy she knows turns out to be a superhero. B. Point Break. Johnny Utah infiltrates a group of really awesome surfers and best buds. One by one he gets them killed, harshing their mellow. Jafar was just trying to take the power away from a doddering old man who gets pushed around by his bitchy teenager. He would have rid a grab of poverty. Maybe then there wouldn't be any street rats. Neo from the Matrix. It's not very hard to understand that we, the humans, destroyed the planet in the Matrix. There were potentially much better sources of energy that could have been used by the machines to propagate. Wind energy, tidal energy, even larger animals would have sufficed. But they chose us. Why? We had already proven to be incredibly dangerous, and as the Colonel Sanders said, the one had done his work 6 times previously. So why keep us around if we're such a threat? Compassion. The machines saved us from ourselves. Saved us from almost certain extinction. Sure, we managed to fight back once our numbers had grown. Thanks in no small part to the machines. But prior to that, we probably would have just died. On top of it all, they tried their best to hide our prison from us. To let us live as freely as we could without destroying ourselves again. We don't know who struck first, but we know that it was us who burned the sky. Morpheus. Who really is the good guy? The Sound of Music. Dissatisfied nun takes it upon herself to dissolve another happy couple's engagement because she doesn't want to be a nun anymore and wants the guy for herself. But because she can sing clever songs and likes children, this is all somehow supposed to be okay. Haha, for a sec, I thought you were going to say dissatisfied nun takes apart the spark plugs of police officers' cars while the police are trying to apprehend suspects. Thor and his friends were freaking jock buttholes. They break the truce between the ice giants in the sloppiest ways and totally frick it up for Odin. Thor shows that he is a crappy leader, so Odin banishes him until he is worthy again. Odin goes to sleep and in his stead Loki takes power and shows real freaking initiative. He kills his true father Laufey and leaves the ice giants leadless, and he is planning a strike to permanently end their ancient enemy with one swift move. During all this, Thor's freaking friends go to Earth and find him in the midst of the most forced one-night relationship I have seen in cinema, and the gist of what they tell Thor is, "Man, I frickin' hate your brother." Like he is a total dweeb and like he isn't even a warrior yet, man. Total dweeb. He totally shouldn't be leading us, you should, man. You're cool with us, right? They make Loki seem like he is absolutely crap. And 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 crap. Thor does a 180 in personality and prevents Loki from destroying the world of the ice giants like he had intended to do 60 minutes earlier. Why? Because his friends said Loki sucked, and Loki sent the destroyer from preventing Thor from coming back because he would be a bumbling idiot if he had power. Then Odin wakes up and when Loki asks for approval, read as, "Dad, I tricked the leader of our ancient enemy into coming here and slayed him myself. And I am steps away from destroying the threat of the ice giants forever." Odin just freaking shakes his head. I don't remember what he does or says, and Loki just lets go because everyone in Asgard is freaking stupid. TLDR. Thor breaks a truce with the ice giants and almost dies because he is an idiot. Gets banished. Odin falls asleep. Loki takes power and almost destroys the ice giants himself but is stopped by Thor. Then doesn't get approval from Dad. Harry Potter series. Dumbledore. He is manipulative and out for the greater good even if it means setting a child up to face death. Even if Harry didn't actually die, he thought he would. National Treasure. Nicolas Cage was the bad guy, and at worst, Sean Bean was misunderstood. Think back to the very beginning of the movie. Sean Bean and Nick Cage are both treasure hunting together. They've been a good team together. They've been working together. Heck, Sean Bean has been funding the entire operation. Then they finally find the clue that tells them that the map is on the back of the Declaration of Independence. Sean Bean suggests that they borrow the map. Nicolas Cage, suddenly, and strangely, says no, I'm not going to let you steal the Declaration of Independence, and essentially implies that he would stop Sean Bean from getting the Declaration. Think about this for a minute. These two are friends. They've been working together for years, and suddenly, when they are so close, Nick Cage goes, "Sorry, I'm not gonna let you get the treasure." And then, to top it all off, Nick Cage steals the Declaration of Independence himself. He justifies it by saying that to stop Sean Bean from stealing the Declaration, he, Cage, Must steal it first. What? That's like if I was working in a bank robbery group and then decided that to prevent the bank robbery from happening, I would rob the bank first and keep the money for myself. It makes no sense and is a clear betrayal. Why didn't Cage just work with Sean Bean in the first place and the two could have shared the treasure together like they had planned? Finally, at the end of the movie, Nick Cage basically frames Sean Bean for the theft of the Declaration. Remember, Nick Cage stole the Declaration of Independence. The FBI agent specifically said that someone has to go to jail. Nick Cage was caught and is on film with the Declaration of Independence. How did he not go to jail? Instead, Sean Bean goes to jail. For doing what? He never stole the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, he might have done some other stuff, like kidnapping, violence, etc. But these were justified because he had been betrayed by Cage. And there are lots of little details throughout the movie showing Nick Cage's trickery and deception against Sean Bean. From the very beginning, it's made out like he used Sean Bean, used his vast resources just to find the clue in that boat. And even when Sean Bean broke Nick Cage out of police custody, remember, Sean Bean was helping Nick Cage out here. Nick Cage was still pulling little tricks, hiding the truth and not telling Sean Bean everything he knew, which they had made an agreement to do. Seriously, rewatch this movie, look at it very closely, and tell me how Sean Bean is the bad guy here. The entire movie, Nick Cage is pulling tricks, hiding the ball, and betraying Sean Bean, who was his friend at the beginning of the movie. And just answer this very simple question. Nicolas Cage stole the Declaration of Independence. So why didn't he go to jail? TLDR. Sean Bean was not the bad guy in National Treasure and Nick Cage was because he betrayed Sean Bean at the very beginning of the movie and essentially framed him as stealing the Declaration of Independence. Did you forget how the movie begins with betrayal and Sean trying to kill Nick? Or how Nick tries to go to the authorities first to warn them that someone will try to steal the Declaration but they all ignore him due to his family's history? Or how, at the end, Sean leaves Nick and crew in that pit seemingly to starve to death? You are reaching here, my friend. Pirates of the Caribbean. Jack was a pirate, but they made the English the bad guys for persecuting him. I know that's the point of the story, but it still bothered me as a child. I think part of the reason Jack is considered heroic is because they never necessarily showed him doing piratey things throughout all 4 movies. We never see him steal from or kill the innocents, as pirates were prone to doing. We just see a mischievous guy who goes on grand adventures and treasure hunts. I read an incredibly detailed essay about Michael Bay's Transformers films on the Something Awful forums, if I recall correctly. That said, among other things, Optimus Prime was the series' main villain and Megatron was, if not the hero, then far more traditionally heroic. From what I remember, if you compare Optimus' narration throughout the 3 movies and what is revealed of the war on Cybertron through dialogue, it becomes very clear that Optimus is an unreliable narrator and that the Autobots were a terrorist group who, having conclusively lost the war, were willing to commit genocide. Destroying the Allspark would cut off all possibility of continuing the species, as well as revenge killings. All of the Decepticons they and the military hunted down in the second movie, who were not shown being aggressive. Megatron's character arc has him, after winning the first war, traveling to Earth to retrieve the Allspark so his race can continue, getting frozen by pure chance, getting discovered, studied, and having his body violated to make our technology, finally escaping with the help of a few loyal friends, only to discover that his old enemies are in league with the creatures who have been dissecting him for the last century, having one of the creatures, a particularly annoying one, use the object he's been striving for to kill him, and then, after getting resurrected, trying to keep his people together while being usurped twice and all the while hunted down by Optimus and those monstrous, bloodthirsty humans. This works for the movies, but for the Transformers, Prime, which seems to have a lot of backstory, with War the Fall of Cybertron in some comics, and 2 seasons, show that originally, Optimus and Megatron were on the same side, trying to help change the way things were on Cybertron, more rights for gladiators, reform, that kind of stuff. But at a certain point, Megatron decides that he doesn't really care about whether or not Cybertron becomes a better place, just that he's in charge. This is where we see the big split between Autobots and Decepticons begin. But for the movies, you're right. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.